You are an unnamed hand, keeping the survival machine running day after day. The fire in the center of the tent burned into a bed of coal at night, but it did not go out. It will never die. Not exactly, because that would mean the death of everyone in the secluded refuge. Someone, perhaps your grandmother, whose biological clock seems never to have stopped, has already fed it a small stick in the darkest hours to keep it alive, but not so bright as to wake up the children or waste precious fuel. Even though there was fire, the inner walls of the tent were still covered with frost at night. You can sense that the way the air flows near the edge is different. It seemed to have thickened and pressed against the leather wall, as if something living were trying to squeeze in. But in the center, near the coal piles, wrapped in the long robes that Auntie had spent weeks preparing and softening, the cold seemed more like a distant threat than an imminent danger. The first thing to do every winter morning is to slip out from under the robe, not to let too much heat escape, not to disturb the person sleeping beside you, and not to move suddenly, so as not to wake up your body before you are ready. This is a cautious dance, an appearance in the colder air, a transformation from a private warm sleep to a waking tent sharing warmth. Your feet will find that the compacted ground is cold, but does not freeze due to the insulation of the animal skin and the gentle heat constantly emitted from the fire. The floor itself tells a carefully designed story that you have known since childhood, but seldom consciously thought about. Under the animal skin where you sleep are layers of dry grass and carefully arranged stones, which absorb heat during the day and are now slowly released back into the air. Sometimes, even before everyone goes to bed, stones heated by fire are strategically placed in the sleeping area. The condition of the water is the first real challenge today. Although these containers meet bags and bladders made from the innards of water buffaloes and elk were brought into the tent, some of them froze during the night. It's not solid, but it's moisture minus resistant, which means you need to fetch water for your daily morning work. You carefully lifted one of the containers, feeling the change in weight as the ice crystals inside redistributed. But first, the fire needs attention. This might be the most crucial skill for survival in winter. Some very basic things children learn almost before they can walk normally. Coal is still hot and still retains the fundamental spark that connects your small group with life itself. You pick a few pieces from a pile of carefully arranged wood, not the largest fragments nor yet, but small twigs, which can quickly bring the fire back to a stable flame without generating too much smoke too soon. The smog in winter is always a delicate balance. Too little fire means cold and death. Too much smoke, too fast, will make the indoor air unbreathable, pushing everyone outside, where the temperature is more dangerous than bad air. The design of teepee addresses this issue through its ingenious ventilation system. Smoke exhaust holes on the top, and adjustable baffles that can be positioned as suitable drawers. The carved walls encourage the smoke to rise and spiral upwards instead of gathering on the ground where people breathe. You carefully added fuel to the fire, watching the small flame start licking the new fuel. The light gradually grew larger, pushing away the grayed immense and revealing more details of your little world. The leather walls are painted with elaborate patterns, telling stories and symbolizing spiritual protection. The arrangement of items, each item has its own place, because there is no wasted space in this carefully organized environment. The weapon was leaning against a section of the wall. Clothes and robes were hung on other pillars. Containers for food, medicine and valuable items should be placed in easily accessible locations that will not be disturbed by accidents. As the fire grew larger and larger, you could hear the sounds of others starting to move around. Someone's breathing shifts from a deep sleep rhythm to a lightened brisk wake of Signals mode. A child let out a small voice and sank deep into the robe again. Outside, if you listen carefully, you can hear similar sounds from other tents. The soft crackling sound when the fire was being rebuilt. That was the murmur of the early morning, the sound of a community awakening in the depth of winter. It is inevitable that the morning routine should be carried out with practical efficiency. Water must be heated for drinking and various washing, so as to keep people healthy even in winter. Food needs to be prepared. The dried meat softens in warm water. Perhaps some stored roots or berries are mixed together. Of course, some fats can provide the necessary calories to keep the body warm in cold conditions. But every task requires you to negotiate with the cold. Going outside to collect snow and wait for it to melt means you expose yourself to the air, and the air will instantly steal heat from you. The wind, always the wind on an airplane. Even the best miners made winter clothes will penetrate and find every small hole, every place where the fur doesn't come into complete contact. Your winter clothes themselves are a miracle of engineering and knowledge accumulation. Closest to your skin, soft, specially prepared leather, feels just like fabric. There are layer upon layer of fur on top of it, still covered with hair. Such an arrangement allows the natural direction of the fur to carry the wind and moisture away from your body. Your feet are wrapped in multiple layers. Inside are soft deer leather shoes, on the outside are thicker, and in the middle are hay or fur stuffed for heat insulation. Your hands, perhaps your most vulnerable limbs, are protected by mittens made of particularly thick fur, usually with extra insulating materials stuffed inside. I was still shocked when I walked outside. The cold hit your face like a solid, making your eyes water. Immediately under nostrils feel as if they were being squeezed. You move quickly and efficiently, scoop the clean snow into the container, and then retreat to a warm place as soon as possible. But even a brief exposure will remind you how thoroughly the world of winter wants to possess you, and how enduring, patient and overwhelming the cold is. Back inside the house, it was the process of melting the snow, heating it to a drinkable temperature for family members to share. Now they are also beginning to wake up from their sleep. Those children who seemed to generate their own heat at night now find that they are as vulnerable to the cold as others. Huddling around the fire, making unpleasant sounds until they are fully warmed and fed. The daytime work starts very early because the day is precious and short. Someone needs to check on these horses to see if the band managed to keep them alive through the winter. This task involves breaking the ice on the water source and ensuring that animals can eat any hay they can find. Others need to maintain and repair equipment that is frequently used in winter conditions. Animal skins need to be processed and softened to prevent them from becoming brittle. Tools need to be sharpened, handles need to be tightened, and fuel management has always been an ongoing task. There is very little wood on the plain. What can be found is often green, damp, or difficult to burn effectively. Dry cow dung burns easily and provides a stable source of heat, but it must be collected frequently and stored in a dry place. Every member of the family, from children who could walk to the elderly who could still move, participated in the endless activity of collecting anything that could burn. The cold makes every task more difficult and takes longer. Your hands have become stiff and clumsy, and you are even wearing mittens. Direct contact with metal tools can cause pain. Leather and animal skins become hard and difficult to process. A simple task that would take a few minutes to complete in warm weather has now become a longer and more complex process. It must be accomplished in stages and requires rest to warm the hands and allow the muscles that have been tense due to the cold to rest. But perhaps the most challenging thing is that winter compresses social life into small tents. In the warm months, people can spread out, work alone or in groups, and have privacy and solitude when needed. Winter forces everyone to stay closely together for several months. Every personality conflict, every minor annoyance, and every difference of opinion will be magnified because they cannot be avoided. You need to learn to interpret the subtle signs of tension. Some people have spent too much time on tasks outside. When someone is having a meal together, it is quieter than usual. Some people arrange their sleeping areas to be a little farther away from others. Social skills for survival in winter are as important as physical skills. Know when to speak, when to keep silent, when to offer help, when to give others space, when to tell stories that bring laughter, and when to let the fire make the only sound. They often complete the tasks they can share together: sewing, preparing food, and processing leather into various items needed. That conversation created a continuous low noise, becoming part of the comfortable backdrop of the tent, just like the sound of a fire outside or the wind in the distance. But these dialogues can also serve as a form of social maintenance, a way to deal with community pressure and concerns without generating direct confrontation. When men are not engaged in more strenuous physical labor such as maintenance and fuel collection, they may work with weapons or tools. These activities allow them to focus quietly on gain a sense of satisfaction from creating useful things with their own hands. Sometimes there are also games, such as gambling games with marker sticks or bones. When outdoor activities are impossible, games can increase excitement and social interaction. Children also have their own winter habits. It's too small to make a significant contribution to the survival mission, but large enough to understand the severity of this season. They play quiet games, listen to stories, impart cultural values and practical knowledge, and gradually learn the skills they will need as adults. But they also offer some precious things that adults sometimes forget they need: the ability to find happiness and miracles even in difficult circumstances. It reminds us that even though survival seems to require every bit of energy and attention, life continues to grow. As time goes by, your body adapts to the rhythm of winter life. The persistent slight chill will never completely disappear. You learn the way to move efficiently to keep warm. The habit of staying by the fire whenever possible and working quickly when it is necessary to stay away from the fire. Your hands will become stiff due to the cold. Learn to slightly raise your shoulders in a position to conserve your body temperature. Your feet learn to find the warmest spot on the floor of the conical tent. Evening came early, and the pale winter sunlight vanished almost before it could arrive. At this point, the conical tent was most thoroughly transformed into a refuge. Outside, the wind might howl through the plain, carrying snow and causing the temperature to drop further. The fire inside is born for the night, providing both actual warmth and the psychological comfort of lightened movement in the darkness. Now is the time to tell stories, to share cultural knowledge that can only be conveyed through oral language. The story of our ancestors surviving even harsher winters. A story about the relationship between humans, animals, and deities. A story that teaches practical skills through narration rather than direct guidance. As the sound rose and fell, the firelight flickered on people's faces, creating a sense of continuity that connected this cold night with all the cold nights before and after. In the evening, the food becomes more refined because there is enough time to prepare and sufficient fuel to cook it thoroughly. The dried meat is softened and seasoned with precious seasonings. Fat is heated and mixed with berries or roots to form high-energy foods that help the body generate heat at night. Sometimes there are special treats and foods, which are prepared in the bountiful autumn for the toughest winter. However, even when communities gather around the fire in search of warmth and social connection, there is a latent sense of vulnerability that has never completely vanished. The leather walls of the tent were meticulously constructed and maintained. Against the backdrop of the vast winter night outside, they still appeared incredibly thin. Fire, which is crucial to life itself, is entirely dependent on fuel and must be collected bit by bit, day after day, from places where fuel is rarely provided. As night falls, getting ready for sleep also becomes a ritual. The arrangement and rearrangement of the robes are aimed at maximizing warmth. The children were placed in the warmest place throughout the night. Make the fire so that it can burn steadily for several hours without much attention. But it should not be too bright, otherwise it will consume too much fuel or make the stove emit more smoke. Finally, you slide back under those thick buffalo robes and feel your body temperature start to warm the small space around you. You listen to the sounds of others sleeping soundly, the rustling of animal skins and furs. When the body relaxes into the sleeping position, there are small sizes and noises. Those who have already found the path to their dreams breathe steadily. Outside, the wind continues its endless dialogue with itself on the plain. Sometimes it rolls to howl, causing the walls of the conical tent to shake and break. Sometimes it vanishes into a whisper, seemingly indicating that colder temperatures are on the way. But inside, wrapped in a carefully prepared robe, surrounded by the warmth of others and the steady glow of the ever-burning coal, you gradually fall asleep, knowing that you have successfully spent a new day. This world demands that you give everything just to watch another sunrise. On winter days, their life rhythm becomes as predictable and indispensable as breathing. waking up facing the cold air and the fire that needs to be reignited, working in the brief daylight to maintain the conditions for survival. Gather around the fire at night to keep warm and enhance interpersonal relationships. You should know that there will still be the same challenges and the same small victories tomorrow. The warmth inside and the coldness outside maintain the same balance. On the Great Plains, human wisdom and cooperation overcame the cold winter. When a fire enters the rhythm of the evening, our thoughts are liberated from the daily struggles of winter survival, allowing us to turn our attention to a special life. Life unfolding on the Conical Hills is very similar to the life we have always imagined. But this kind of life has carved out its own unique path within the traditional survival mode of the plains. Her original name is Bawisha, but in history, people called her female chief. Born around 1806 in Grabtula, she would become one of the most outstanding leaders of the Croo tribe. The story of this character not only illustrates an individual's courage, but also the complex way in which winter survival and leadership are intertwined in the world of the northern plains. Imagine that when she was a child, probably around 8 or 9 years old, she was captured in a cruel attack. Such attacks occur from time to time in tribal relations, just as storms occur from time to time in peaceful weather. The Kilo warriors took her away from her original family. They couldn't imagine that the person they got would eventually attend their meetings on an equal footing, and her voice would carry weight in deciding when to move the camp, where to hunt, how to negotiate with other tribes and the invading American merchants. But first, she was just a child, learning how to get through the winter in a strange tent where the people spoke a language she couldn't, and she had to abide by and gradually understand their customs. Imagine those early winter mornings when she woke up to hear not the familiar voices of her original family, but the sounds of strangers beginning their daily lives. The same cold air, the same need to make a fire, the same careful preservation of heating and fuel. But now the anxiety of being displaced. It is unknown whether she will be filtered out by the uncertainty that truly belongs to this new community. Her adoptive father noticed something in her very early on, perhaps an unease or a special kind of wisdom, which was manifested in the way she observed rather than simply obeyed. It seems that she not only knows how to survive in winter, but also understands the reasons behind every cautious practice. While other children of the same age learn the roles they expect through imitation and repetition, she seems to be studying the entire system, observing how decisions are made, how authority flows within the community, and how survival strategies adapt to the constantly changing environment. During those long winter nights, people were telling stories in tents and imparting cultural knowledge through oral language. She listened attentively, far beyond the curiosity of an ordinary child. Not only did she learn the Kro language, but she also grasped the deeper grammar of the Kro society who speaks first in a discussion, how to handle differences, what kind of leaders are respected and what kind of leaders can only be tolerated. She absorbed the stories of great warriors and wise chiefs. But she also noticed some quieter stories, which told of those who survived the unbearable winter and found ways to keep their families alive when traditional methods failed. As she entered adolescence, the expectations for her role began to materialize, creating a friction between the abilities she observed and the available channels for expressing them. The young Crow girl learned complex skills, such as preparing animal skins, preserving food, building and maintaining tents. These are all essential knowledge for survival in winter. All of this requires wisdom and professional knowledge, which are often underestimated because they are expected rather than praised. But a female supervisor seems to understand that although these skills are crucial, they only represent one aspect of the knowledge that true leadership requires. During the hunting expeditions in the warm months, she began to demonstrate unusual tracking and shooting abilities. More importantly, she demonstrated an intuitive grasp of the tactical thinking required for successful hunting, the ability to predict animal behavior, the ability to coordinate group movements, and the ability to adjust strategies according to constantly changing weather and terrain conditions. When winter confined the band to seasonal camps, the way she spent her time was different from that of many of her peers. while others were focused on perfecting their family skills to become valuable wives and mothers. She spent time with older warriors and hunters, learning to maintain and repair weapons, studying maps that only experienced people would use, and absorbing accumulated wisdom about seasonal patterns, water sources, the habits of hunting animals, the territory and temperament of neighboring tribes. In the winter, when she was about 16 or 17, a series of events began to occur, which not only reshaped her own life, but also the entire community she was in's understanding of what kind of leadership was possible. The band set up a winter camp in a place that seemed protected and well supplied. However, as the cold months progressed, unusual weather patterns and increasing pressure from competing tribes made the situation increasingly unstable. Food reserves are lower than expected. The prey near them has become scarce. The hunting teens, sent out to search for fresh meat, returned empty-handed, or didn't come back at all. As winter deepens and the situation worsens, the traditional leadership structure begins to show pressure. Decisions that seemed wise in autumn exposed their flaws under the harsh January sun of scarce supplies. It was precisely during this crisis that the female chief began to stand out, not only because she had useful skills, but also because she had a completely different approach to the issue of winter survival. While others were debating the benefits of more strict rationing of existing supplies or sending larger hunting teams to increasingly dangerous areas, she put forward a more radical suggestion, that is, to move to a place in winter where the traditional view holds that taking too much risk in cold weather. Her reasoning is based on the knowledge she has accumulated over the years, not only about the nearby areas but also about weather patterns in a broader region, seasonal activities of hunting animals, and strategic calculations for other tribal groups that may face similar difficulties. She not only listened to what people said at the council meeting, but also to what they didn't say, to the assumptions that influenced their decisions, and to the ways in which traditional methods might not be sufficient to deal with unprecedented challenges. The debate over her proposal lasted for several winter nights, with the Conservative Party's political dynamics unfolding around the central bonfire. Those elderly people who had gained authority through success in war and hunting found that they had to take seriously the advice of someone who had never led a war team or been officially recognized as a hunter. Those women who watched her grow from a homeless child to a young person with unusual interests found that they wanted to know whether her thoughts represented wisdom or dangerous lack of experience. But hunger is a persuasive argument. As the situation continued to deteriorate, the community gradually realized that traditional methods might not be sufficient to address their current situation. A female chief was allowed to lead an expedition team to assess the feasibility of the winter relocation she proposed, not because everyone was completely convinced that she was right, but because other options were becoming less and less attractive. The journey she led in the depth of winter not only demonstrated her personal abilities, but also her understanding of how to organize and inspire routine under the most challenging conditions. She carefully selects her companions, not only considering their physical skills, but also their ability to cooperate under pressure. They are willing to trust her judgment, even if it contradicts their own intuition, their ability to maintain morale when everything seems to be going wrong. The route she chose balanced the calculated risks with the actual needs. She led them through terrains that most experienced travelers would avoid in winter, but she paid great attention to weather patterns, the locations of natural shelters, and the supply of fuel and water along the way during her journey. When they encountered unexpected obstacles, such as a river that was supposed to freeze, but ended up having a dangerous weakness, or a mountain pass blocked by more snow than expected, she quickly adapted and took advantage of the alternative solutions she had clearly been considering all along. More importantly, she demonstrated the kind of leadership needed for survival in winter, the ability to make quick decisions when information is incomplete. When an individual's life depends on collective cooperation, maintain the cohesion of the group, strike a balance between optimism and realism, allowing people to move forward without ignoring the real dangers. When her reconnaissance team returned to the winter camp, they learned that the proposed relocation was not only feasible but could also save lives. and the community was faced with another decision. Sending out a small mobile team to explore various possibilities is one thing. Packing up the entire winter camp, the elderly, children, pregnant women, patients, all accumulated survival necessities and equipment for large minor-scale relocation during the harshest season is an entirely different matter. Over the following days, the female chief, together with the existing leaders, meticulously planned this operation. Her role in these discussions is complex and unprecedented. She is clearly the one who knows the route and the destination best. But her authority also exists outside the normal structure of the band's leadership. The solution that emerges is itself an innovation. She will serve as the guiding and strategic advisor for this move, while the official leadership remains composed of traditional respected individuals. The subsequent winter migration tests everyone involved, and the peaceful life in conical tents, no matter how challenging it is, rarely has such a test. Packing for a winter camp means making some tough decisions about what can be carried and what must be left behind. The tents had to be dismantled and loaded onto Trover Island in bad weather, which made every task extremely difficult. For months, the children had been trapped in a warm space. Suddenly they had to endure long trips, and this environment tested the limits of their endurance. The female chief moves among the migrating crowds like a complex logistics coordinator, checking the pace of different family groups, monitoring the conditions of people and animals, observing weather patterns, looking for storm signs that might require emergency shelters, and adjusting her route according to the hourly changes. It seems that she shows up everywhere at the same time, helping to fix broken equipment under the pressure of winter travel, looking for obstacles or opportunities ahead, and dealing with hundreds of minor crises that arise when the entire community attempts to traverse a hostile environment. But perhaps most notably, while doing all this, she also maintains a delicate social balance, and it is precisely this balance that makes migration possible. Her authority does not come from traditional sources but from the abilities she demonstrates, which means that her authority must be constantly renewed through successful decisions. She must always be correct so that people can continue to trust her judgment, but she must also make mistakes gracefully so that occasional errors do not damage her overall credibility. It turned out that the destination she chose was everything she had promised: a secluded valley with abundant water sources, plenty of prey to replenish their dwindling food reserves, and natural landscapes capable of withstanding the harshest winter weather. More importantly, this move indicates that this band possesses abilities they have never fully realized. They can adapt to extreme environments, the leadership can stand out from unexpected places, and survival sometimes requires giving up traditional wisdom and adopting innovative methods. The rest of that winter unfolded at a new pace. The role of female chiefs in the community has undergone a fundamental change. She is no longer merely a young woman with extraordinary interests and abilities. Her judgment carried weight at council meetings. When important decisions had to be made, people would seek her advice. Her leadership ability was even accepted by those who were initially skeptical of her unconventional path. But this transformation has also brought new challenges. Success brought popularity, and popularity also brought scrutiny from people in her own tribe and other tribal communities. They heard the story of this Karo woman, who led like a chief, but was never officially recognized. Some people think she is an inspiring role model whose personal ability exceeds social expectations. Others, however, consider her a dangerous disruptor of the natural order, and her success might encourage other women to give up their due roles and seek inappropriate authority. The female chief, with the same strategic wisdom she had during her winter survival, managed to handle these complex reactions. She understands that her sustained effectiveness depends not only on her personal ability, but also on her capacity to work within the existing social structure and gradually reshape it. She cannot simply ignore traditional expectations, but she cannot allow these expectations to completely limit her contribution to the welfare of the community. In the following years, her reputation expanded from her direct band to a wider range of fields. Other tribal leaders sought her advice on strategic and diplomatic issues. The trade post began to recognize her as a person with the right to negotiate on behalf of her people. When government officials encountered her, they had to struggle to deal with an unfamiliar challenge. That is, to deal with a Native American leader who did not conform to their preconceived notions about the role of women or the power structure of the tribe. However, despite the continuous expansion of her influence and recognition, the fundamental core of her leadership ability remains rooted in the practical wisdom she accumulated during the early winter in Tipis. She believes that survival is not an individual achievement, but a collective effort that requires the contribution of everyone. She knows that successful leadership means making decisions that can balance current needs and long-term consequences. She realized that innovation often means combining traditional knowledge with new methods, rather than completely discarding the past. The winters of her mature leadership were different from those disparate experiences in the early days, but they still provided a testing ground for her ability time and again. Each season brings new challenges, such as bad weather, food shortages, pressure from competing tribes, and the complexity of the United States. Expansion into traditional territories is gradually increasing. Every challenge requires her to combine practical knowledge, strategic thinking, and social skills, which are precisely the initial characteristics of her as a young woman. At the parliamentary meeting held around the winter fire, her voice was full of authority because she had repeatedly proved her ability to keep people alive in extreme situations. When she talked about the need to adapt to the constantly changing environment, people listened because they remembered the winter migration she led. When she advocated resolving the conflict through diplomatic means rather than military ones, her opinion was taken seriously because everyone knew that she had proved her courage in the most direct way. But perhaps most importantly, her success has created unprecedented possibilities for other women. Not every woman chooses to follow the traditional male role, but knowing that such a path is possible has changed everyone's perception of their personal abilities and social expectations. Young women who grew up in herd and know that survival skills and leadership abilities are not limited by traditional gender roles, and that communities value capabilities regardless of their origin. As we reflect on this extraordinary life, flames flicker on the walls of the conical tent in our imagination. This story tells of a person who not only changed his own possibilities but also transformed the entire society's understanding of what kind of leadership is needed to survive in a challenging world. The winter of the female chief is filled with the daily tasks we have explored before: fighting fires, melting snow, maintaining equipment, and managing the complex social dynamics of people who have been confined to confined spaces for months. However, above these ordinary challenges, there is an additional dimension of leadership itself. That is, the responsibility to make decisions that not only affect her own survival, but also that of everyone who relies on her judgment. She knew that her success or failure would determine whether the children would wake up warm or cold, whether the elders could get through another winter, and whether the entire band would become stronger and more united after the harsh season would be weakened by internal conflicts and external pressure. When our attention shifted from her special story to the broader mysteries of winter survival in the tent community, we realized that individual life and collective survival are inseparable. The same practical skills enabled families to survive the harsh winter and also provided a foundation for leadership, which could guide the entire community to overcome challenges that no one had faced before. The wind outside continues its endless conversation with itself on the plain. But in the circle of firelight, human intelligence and cooperation have created a space where life can not only survive but also thrive. There, outstanding individuals can stand everyone's understanding of this world that seems determined to test the limits of human endurance and adaptability. Now, let's shift from individual stories to something deeper and more mysterious. The quiet engineering wonder makes survival in winter possible. When our fire enters the rhythm of the night and the wind whispers ancient songs across the plain, we find ourselves drawn into one of the most elegant puzzles in history. How could a building made of animal skins and wooden poles become a refuge in the scorching heat that kills a person in just a few minutes? Modern archaeologists and engineers have spent decades trying to fully understand the thermodynamics of traditional gyroscopes. They established computer models, built experimental replicas, and measured heat flow and air circulation patterns with complex instruments. The university has devoted the entire research project to solving these mysteries, bringing together experts in thermodynamics, materials science, anthropology, and atmospheric physics. However, some types of winter performance still cannot be fully scientifically explained. The oral tradition of the people in the plains contains clues and fragments of knowledge. However, the complete system, the combination of materials, design, and human behavior, which makes the warmth of winter possible, is still partially shrouded in mystery. Consider the basic physical principles of the challenge. A-type is essentially a conical tent. Its walls are made of materials that are considered to have poor heat insulation performance by modern standards. Buffalo hide, elk hide, deer hide. These materials have certain insulating properties, but they are different from the thermal barriers we expect from contemporary building materials. The R-value thermal resistance of modern glass fiber insulation materials is approximately 3. Varo processed animal skins rarely exceeds R5 per inch. There is a large opening at the top of the structure, allowing smoke to escape, which causes what should be a huge heat loss problem. The walls and the floor form a circle. Despite being carefully arranged, they still cannot be completely sealed to prevent air from seeping in. However, families usually spend the entire winter in these structures, and maintaining the internal temperature not only ensures survival but also true comfort. Even when the external temperature drops to -40 or 50 degrees, the historical records of merchants, officers, and early anthropologists consistently describe entering winter tents, discovering warm and pleasant environments, and children playing in these spaces wearing the least amount of clothing. The elderly had endured seasons of bad weather and often lived to be in their 80s. Even by modern standards, this is remarkable. People are engaged in meticulous and complex work, which requires stable hands and a good field of vision. They need to make headwear, quill pens, tools, and prepare animal skins. This indicates that the indoor conditions are not only warm enough for survival, but also actually comfortable enough for normal life activities. The first layer of this mystery lies in the shape of the cone itself. This unique conical profile is not arbitrary. It represents a complex understanding of how air moves and how heat behaves in enclosed spaces. The pointed top creates a natural chimney effect, drawing in air upward and outward through the smoke holes while drawing in fresh air around the bottom. However, this airflow must be carefully managed with the precision of modern HVAC systems. Excessive circulation will make the room as cold as the outside. If there is too little, the smoke will accumulate to a dangerous level, not only causing discomfort but also potentially leading to fatal carbon monoxide poisoning. The angle of the teepee wall is usually between 60 and 70 degrees horizontally, representing the best compromise among various eng and mirroring requirements. A steeper angle will produce a better chimney, but it will reduce the internal space and make the structure less stable in strong winds. A shallower angle will provide more living space, but it will cause poor ventilation and make the structure more vulnerable to snow loads. The traditional angle maximizes the internal volume while maintaining the integrity of the structure and the best airflow characteristics. The exhaust panels, those adjustable panels, can be controlled to open at the peak of the type, functioning like a primitive yet efficient ventilation system. These are not simple flaps but complex aerodynamic devices, usually reinforced with additional rods and meticulously shaped to generate specific airflow patterns. Experienced sharp-billed birds can read wind direction, temperature, air pressure, and weather patterns, and then adjust these flaps to generate accurate traction. When in the right position, they produce a risky effect, pulling up smoke while minimizing heat loss. Venturi's principle was not formally described by physics until the 18th century. Centuries earlier, the plain people had applied this principle with astonishing precision. When a storm approaches or the temperature drops to a dangerous level, the smoke baffle can be adjusted to almost close the opening while still maintaining sufficient air circulation to prevent carbon monoxide poisoning. This requires a thorough understanding of how different wind conditions affect indoor air quality, how different fire intensities alter ventilation requirements, and how fluctuations in outdoor temperature change the chimney effect. The adjustment of smoke screens is both a science and an art, which requires constant attention and subtle modifications based on changing conditions. But a real secret to keeping tents warm lies in the technology that archaeological evidence can only suggest. This knowledge was passed down through generations of winter survivors, but to a large extent, it has been forgotten by contemporary understanding. One of the secrets involves the construction of what the Plains people call the inner house, which is the second layer of hiding and creates an insulated space within the main tent structure. This interior cabin is not merely a second wall parallel to the first one. It has been meticulously designed to create a specific airflow pattern, maintaining air quality while maximizing temperature. The inner lining is suspended a few inches from the exterior wall, creating a lifeless space and providing significant additional insulation. Dead air space is the foundation of modern insulation theory. They prevent convective heat loss by eliminating air circulation while maintaining the low thermal conductivity of still air. But what is more complicated is that the interior cabins are usually built with strategic openings and passageways to guide cold air down the exterior walls while keeping warm air circulating in the living space. The construction of the inner cabin requires precise measurement and careful planning. The suspension system uses wood nails, knots on strategic attachment points to evenly distribute weight while maintaining the critical air gap. The bottom edge of the inner cabin usually extends to the sleeping layer, but does not reach the floor, forming a circulation pattern. Cold air enters the area around the bottom of the conical tent, flows between two layers of leather, gradually warms up, and then enters the living space on the first floor, where it is heated by fire and rises upwards. This creates a primitive forced air heating system that only uses carefully managed natural convection. The physical principle of this system is very elegant. The dense cold air enters through the inevitable gaps around the bottom of the tent, naturally sinks and flows along the ground. By guiding this air between the interior and exterior walls, it preheats tests by coming into contact with the warm exterior walls before entering the living space. Meanwhile, the warm air heated by the central fire source will rise towards the smoke holes, forming a circulation pattern that maintains a comfortable temperature throughout the indoor space while preventing the dangerous elimination of cold air on the floor. Archaeological investigations of historical sites have revealed evidence of more complex thermal management techniques. The excavation work has discovered some stones that seem to be used as thermal batteries. Place the stones that have been heated during the day near the fire or even inside it, and then put them around the sleeping area. They will gradually release heat throughout the night. The arrangement of these stones indicates a careful selection of thermal performance, with different types of rocks being chosen based on their ability to absorb, store and gradually release heat. River stone, with its dense composition and smooth surface, is the preferred choice for heat storage applications. Although volcanic rocks have insulating properties, they are avoided because they can retain moisture and explode when heated. Sandstone and limestone are sometimes used due to their medium thermal properties and flammability for special purposes. The arrangement of these thermal cells demonstrates a complex understanding of heat transfer principles. The placement of the stones is to maximize the radiant heating of the sleeping area, while minimizing heat loss to the ground. Some sites show evidence of underground heating systems, which are almost impossible for the nomadic technology we usually imagine. They dug a shallow ditch in the sleeping area, filled it with heated stones, and then covered it with layers of animal skins and soil to form radiant floor heating. The thermal mass of the stone can store enough heat to keep the sleeping space warm for 6 to 8 hours, long enough to get through the coldest part of the night when the fire is piled very low to save fuel. These underground heating systems require an in-depth understanding of soil thermal conductivity, moisture management and heat distribution. These communications are often 8 to 12 feet deep, just enough to provide heat while preventing it from escaping to deep and colder soil layers. Their inner linings are specially prepared materials, usually birch bark strips or hay layers, to prevent moisture from seeping in while allowing for effective upward heat transfer. The layout of these heating trenches demonstrates evidence of meticulous planning and engineering calculations. Their positioning makes full use of the natural ground profile, drainage patterns, and prevailing wind directions. Some locations show multiple interconnected grooves, creating different temperature zones for different family members. The warmest zone is reserved for children and the elderly, the medium- temperature zone for healthy adults, and the cooler zone for storing temperature-sensitive materials. But perhaps the most interesting mystery is the complex understanding of human thermal comfort demonstrated by these winter survival systems. Modern research shows that staying warm in extremely cold environments is not merely about raising the temperature. It involves managing humidity, air circulation, radiant heat sources, and the thermal properties of materials that come into contact with human skin. The thermal comfort zone of the human body is very narrow. It not only requires sufficient temperature but also appropriate humidity levels, airflow, and radiant heat balance. The arrangement of materials inside winter tent shows a deep understanding of all these factors. The sleeping area is built in layers which can both prevent moisture and insulate heat. The bottom layer is usually composed of carefully arranged branches or hay, providing cushioning and air circulation beneath the sleeping body. These materials were specially selected and prepared. Willow branches are preferred for their flexibility and natural antibacterial properties, while grassland grass is chosen for its hollow stems, which create an insulating airspace. On this basis, the continuous and leather layer forms a barrier against the cold of the ground, while keeping the moisture produced by breathing and body heat away from the sleeping person instead of accumulating on the bed. The specific sequence of these layers represents a complex understanding of the principle of vapor barriers of moisture management. The inner layer is made of soft and breathable leather, which can keep the body away from moisture. The middle layer provides insulation while maintaining breathability. The outer layer is treated with natural waterproof substances to prevent ground moisture from entering the sleeping area while still allowing steam to transfer. The specific types of animal skins used for different purposes within the tent also reveal a complex understanding of the material's properties. The fur of water buffaloes is thick and dense. People prefer to use them as exterior walls because they can resist wind and precipitation to the greatest extent. The protective undercoat of water buffalo leather creates a natural wind barrier, while the thick undercoat provides insulation. However, for the inner layer and sleep materials, lighter and softer deer skin or elk skin was chosen because they had different thermal properties and can be processed into materials that are comfortable to come into contact with human skin. Deerskin, when properly tanned, becomes very soft and flexible while maintaining good thermal properties. Its cellular structure allows for breathability while providing insulation, and its natural oils produce hygroscopic properties, which help maintain comfort during sleep. Deerskin is thicker and more durable, and is usually used in the middle layer. Durability is important, but maximum softness is not required. Even the preparation of these leathers involves techniques to enhance their thermal properties, and modern science has only just begun to understand these techniques. The traditional brain tanning process not only makes the leather soft and elastic, but also causes microscopic changes in the leather structure, thereby enhancing its insulation performance. The brain substances used for leather making contain specific enzymes and lipids that can alter the protein structure of collagen fibers, thereby generating a material that is more flexible and thermally efficient than the original leather. The oil and fat used in this process are not merely for preserving materials. They have created a natural waterproof material that can maintain insulation even in damp conditions. Bear fat, beaver oil, and buffalo butter are commonly used, and each has its specific characteristics. Bear fat has excellent waterproof performance, but if not handled properly, it may deteriorate. Beaver oil has excellent moisture-proof performance and remains effective at low temperatures. Beef tallow is readily available and offers excellent overall performance in most applications. The smoking process usually accomplishes the preparation of animal skins and serves multiple purposes besides preservation. Specific woods used for smoking, usually willow, cherry, or oak, are endowed with chemical compounds that provide additional water resistance, natural antibacterial properties, and even insect repellent properties. The smoking process also causes minor changes on the leather surface, enhancing the leather's water drainage capacity while maintaining its breathability. The fire management techniques used in winter tents represent another layer of thermal engineering, combining practical knowledge with what can only be described as artistic skills. Maintaining a proper fire for the winter is not merely a matter of burning enough fuel to generate heat. The type of wood, the arrangement of burning materials, the time of fuel addition, and even the specific shape and size of the fire. All these variables must be managed to generate stable and effective heat without producing dangerous smoke or consuming precious fuel resources too quickly. Different types of wood produce different quantities and qualities of smoke when burned at different temperatures. Experienced winter survivors know exactly how to use different species at different times of the day and night to achieve different purposes. Hardwoods such as oak, ash and maple provide coal that burns for a long time and can maintain a stable heat for several hours with little attention. These are the first choice for night fires when continuous care is not feasible. Softwoods like pine and cedar burn very quickly and heat up, making them ideal for rapidly heating cold tents or for cooking applications that require high temperatures quickly. But the choices go far beyond the simple categories of hardwood and softwood. Birch bark is regarded as a source of fire because it is very easy to ignite, even when burned with a clean hot flame in damp conditions. High-end prepared punk would provide intermediate burning materials, bridging the gap between the fire source and the larger fuel block. Different types of dry animal droppings, such as those from water buffaloes, elk, and deer, each have distinct burning characteristics and specific uses when wood is scarce. The arrangement of combustion materials follows a pattern that maximizes heat output and fuel efficiency. The traditional still is not merely a pile of burning wood, but a carefully designed system that generates the least amount of smoke while maintaining high combustion efficiency. The fuel blocks are arranged in a specific pattern, sometimes in a star structure, with the ends gradually moving into the center, and sometimes in a log cabin structure, promoting uniform combustion and good air circulation. The size and shape of the fire are adjusted according to outdoor conditions, indoor heating requirements, and available fuel supply. In extremely cold conditions, larger fires have a greater radiating surface area, providing the maximum heat output. Under milder conditions or when fuel is limited, smaller and more efficient fires save resources while maintaining sufficient warmth. The location of the campfire inside the tent was also carefully considered. Slightly off center create better air circulation, and utilize the natural ventilation mode to provide the best heat distribution for the sleeping on working areas. Fast burning wood used for quickly heating cold tents includes dry cottonwood, which is easy to ignite, burns fast, and has good heat output, but does not have a long lasting coal based one. Poplar trees have similar fast burning properties and are often used to start fires in the morning when rapid heating is needed. Cedar offers the additional benefits of a pleasant aroma and natural insect repellent properties, making it very popular in enclosed spaces. Slow burning woods used to maintain a stable temperature at night include oak, which can produce long lasting coal that can be stored and revived after several hours. Hickory wood provides excellent cool and stable heat output for combustion. Hard maple creates dense, long burning coal that maintains a constant temperature with minimal concern. These hardwoods are carefully preserved and strategically used when long term heat is more important than rapid temperature changes. Aromatic woods that create a pleasant indoor environment during long confinement include cherries, which when properly seasoned offer a sweet and delightful smoke. Apple wood, when available, creates pleasant fragrant conditions and is sometimes used on special occasions or in ceremonies. Juniper offers a delightful aroma and purifying properties, making it popular both practically and spiritually. Knowledge of fire management extends to understanding how to arrange burning materials to create a lasting coal that can be easily restored. This includes creating a coal seam with proper air circulation, understanding how to use ash to store flames to control the burning rate, and knowing how to locate and burn fuel so that it can gradually supply fuel to the fire as the coal forms. Skilled firefighters can keep a fire burning for several days with minimal fuel consumption, maintain the vitality of coal, and quickly restore it to a full flame when needed. The burning of banks at night requires precise technology and cautious judgment. Too much volcanic ash covering the fire will completely extinguish it. If there is too little, the fuel will be consumed too quickly. The correct storage techniques include creating a coal seam of the optimal size and density, covering it with sufficient ash to slow down the combustion without completely suffocating it, and placing new fuel when the coal burns to gradually supply fuel to the coal. Managing airflow to make quality fuel burn more effectively involves understanding the relationship between the supply of combustion air and the characteristics of the fuel. Green wood requires more air circulation to burn thoroughly, while dry wood needs more airflow to burn in order to prolong the burning time. Understanding these relationships, skilled firefighters can extract the maximum heat from any available fuel, whether it is the main hardwood or edge materials like green twigs or dry manure. However, apart from the purely practical aspects of fire management, the impact of ritual and psychological factors on winter survival is difficult to quantify, but it cannot be ignored. The fire in the center is not only a heat source but also the focus of social cohesion, a symbol of life and continuity, reminding people that even in the harshest environments, human wisdom and cooperation can create warmth and security. Fire represents the core of the conical tent, both literally and metaphorically. It is the source of warmth, light and cooking ability, and also the center of family and social life. Sitting around the fireplace, telling stories, making decisions, passing on knowledge and maintaining relationships. The psychological significance of fire far exceeds its contribution to heat. It offers a sense of security, continuity and human control over the environment, which otherwise would make people feel overwhelmingly hostile. People's positions around fire follow the pattern of maximizing thermal efficiency and social harmony. These arrangements are not arbitrary but represent a complex understanding of human thermal needs, social dynamics and space utilization. Elderly people with lower efficiency in generating and retaining heat in their bodies are placed in the warmest positions, closest to fire, away from cold walls and ventilation. The placement also recognizes the social importance and ensures that they can fully participate in the bile organ decision-making process. Children are more susceptible to the cold, but they are also more adaptable and energetic. They are placed in areas that are both warm and have space to play and walk around. Their proximity to the fire enables them to warm up quickly when they get cold, and their position also allows adults to monitor them at any time. The children's seating arrangement takes into account their tendency to move around and need to enter the play area, and their role in the family dynamics. Adults responsible for maintaining the fire and managing other survival tasks place themselves in areas where they can work effectively while still receiving sufficient warmth. This usually means occupying a position that is not the warmest, but is convenient for accessing fuel supplies, cooking areas and the fire itself. Adult seats have also taken into account work requirements. Those engaged in delicate work such as making tools or animal skins need good lighting and a comfortable working angle. The social arrangements around the fire also followed cultural etiquette, maintaining family harmony during the long period of forced proximity. The tent life in winter keeps family members in close contact for months at a time, which makes social organization crucial for psychological survival. The seating arrangement reflects the family hierarchy, respects individual needs and preferences, and provides mechanisms for managing conflicts and maintaining cooperation. Even sleep arrangements represent a kind of thermal engineering combined with social organization. Family members are not simply lying in a place with space. They arranged for themselves to share body temperature with the children and the elderly at the center, where they were the warmest. Adults were outside, and they could monitor the situation and respond to problems. These arrangements have been meticulously designed to maximize thermal efficiency while maintaining comfort and privacy. The sleep arrangement system takes into account the different heat requirements of different age groups and physical conditions. Infants and children have the highest ratio of body surface area to body mass and are the most prone to heat dissipation. They are placed in the warmest areas and often share bathrobes, of adults to increase warmth. Elderly people whose circulatory systems are less efficient in maintaining core body temperature are also placed in warm areas and used with additional insulation materials. Healthy adults who generate the most body heat and maintain the best thermal balance place themselves in areas that can provide a thermal buffer for more vulnerable family members while also staying comfortable themselves. Pregnant women have received special consideration in terms of sleep arrangements, providing sufficient warmth while allowing for comfortable and easy activities at night. The layering and arrangement of the bathrobe create maximum insulation, while allowing air circulation and preventing the dangerous accumulation of carbon dioxide. The stratified system of sleep materials represents a complex understanding of thermodynamics, moisture management and air quality maintenance. The base layer close to the ground provides insulation from the cold and damp ground. The middle layer creates airspace for insulation, while managing the transfer of steam from the sleeping body. The top floor provides wind resistance while maintaining breathability. The arrangement of the bathrooms also takes into account the individual's needs for adjustment and exercise during sleep. Skilled tent residents did not create a large sleeping area but instead developed a system in which an individual's robe could be adjusted without disturbing others. In this system, additional layers could be added or removed according to changing conditions, and the thermal system remained effective even when people moved during sleep. The mystery deepens when we consider that all these complex thermal management tasks were accomplished without any formal scientific understanding of heat transfer, thermodynamics, or the physics of air circulation. This knowledge is entirely empirical. Winter survivors passed down from generation to generation learned effective methods than direct experience. They improved their techniques through trial and error. They understood cause and effect, but not necessarily the underlying scientific principles. Through systematic testing of different methods and rigorous feedback on winter survival requirements, carefully observing which methods work and which do not, this empirical knowledge system is highly effective in developing solutions to complex thermal energy engineering problems. The performance of the thermal management systems developed by the Plains people is comparable to or exceeds that of more technically complex methods. The knowledge transmission system passed down from generation to generation has preserved and refined this information, which is one of the most successful examples of human practice in engineering education. Young people learn through observation, participation, and gradually taking responsibility. This knowledge is rooted in cultural practice, reinforced through storytelling, and verified through practical application. The mistake was soon discovered and corrected. Successful innovations were promptly adopted, and on the basis of accumulated experience, the entire system was continuously improved. However, the system they developed is highly effective and can survive continuously in some of the harshest climates on Earth. Temperature records in the northern plains show that winter conditions typically reach 40 degrees Celsius, occasionally dropping below 50 degrees. During winter storms, wind speeds can exceed 60 miles per hour, and the resulting wind chill can kill unprotected people within minutes. However, these families not only survived under such conditions, but also maintained an active and productive life throughout the winter. Modern attempts to replicate traditional conical tents for heating often fail to achieve the effects described in historical records, indicating that there is still some traditional knowledge that have not been fully restored or understood. Contemporary tipi enthusiasts, despite having the opportunity to come into contact with modern materials and a scientific understanding of thermal principles, often find it difficult to reach the comfort level historically described as conventional. Part of the reason for this performance gap might be the loss of some subtle techniques that were regarded as common sense among traditional slightly tipsy residents, but because they were so important to daily life, they were not explicitly recorded. These may include specific methods for preparing animal skins, special techniques for fire management, or precise air circulation control methods that are conveyed through practical guidance rather than verbal explanations. Some of the lost knowledge may involve subtle techniques for managing the interaction between human behavior and the thermal environment. For instance, the traditional view holds that experienced winter survivors can predict weather changes by observing the behavior of their tent fires. Changes in air pressure, humidity, or wind direction can affect combustion and smoke flow, thereby providing early warnings for upcoming storms. This environmental sensitivity not only requires technical knowledge, but also a profound and comprehensive understanding of how human shelters interact with natural systems. The ability to read fire behavior for weather forecasting represents a complex understanding of the relationship between atmospheric conditions and combustion characteristics. Changes in atmospheric pressure can affect the smoke exhaust from chimneys and the combustion characteristics of fires. An increase in humidity will alter the behavior of smoke and the efficiency of fuel combustion. Changes in wind direction can alter the air circulation inside the tent and change the optimal positions of the smoke hood and ventilation risk control devices. Experienced residents can predict a storm a few hours before it arrives by interpreting these subtle changes in fire behavior, thus having time to make additional preparations and adjust the heating system. They can distinguish different types of weather based on the way the fire burns, the way the smoke moves, and the way the air circulates inside the tent. This knowledge is invaluable for winter survival, providing early warnings of dangerous situations and allowing for proactive rather than passive responses to weather changes. The integration of human behavior and thermal management systems goes beyond weather forecasting, encompassing daily life activity patterns and seasonal preparations to maximize heating efficiency while minimizing fuel consumption. To survive successfully in winter, these behavioral adaptations are as important as the physical engineering of the tent itself. Daily life is meticulously designed to fully utilize the natural heat cycle and optimize the performance of the heating system. The morning routine includes restoring the specific sequence of the bank fire, adjusting the ventilation system to adapt to the changing weather conditions, and preparing heating elements for the day's activities. The daily work at night includes lighting a fire to spend the night, adjusting the sleep schedule to achieve the best heat distribution, and preparing spare heating elements for emergencies. The activity patterns within the building are organized to maximize thermal efficiency while maintaining productivity and social harmony. Heat-generating activities, such as cooking, tool-making and preparing animal skins, are scheduled when additional heat is needed and utilize thermal cycling patterns. Quiet activities that require the least amount of heat are scheduled in the warmer parts of the day or in the naturally warmer areas of the tent. The clothes worn in the winter tent are also part of the entire thermal management system. Modern people are accustomed to buildings with heating and might think that a warm residence means people can wear light clothes indoors. However, traditional winter tent life requires a carefully layered clothing system that can be adjusted as needed to maintain a comfortable body temperature while allowing for various activities necessary for survival in winter. These layers of clothes were not piled up randomly. They represent a complex understanding of how different materials and arrangements affect human thermal comfort. The layered system allows for fine tuning of temperature control, which cannot be achieved solely through shading heating. The soft processed leather at the bottom keeps the skin comfortable while managing body heat and moisture during body activity. These base layers are carefully prepared to be soft to the skin while providing heat insulation and moisture absorption properties. The middle layer provides a large amount of insulation while allowing for flexible movement and operation. These layers can be added or removed as needed based on the activity level, time, and external conditions. The materials selected for the middle layer take into account insulation performance, durability, and adjustability. When people move between different areas of the tent or engage in various activities, the outer layer can be added or removed to provide additional thermal protection when needed and allow for cooling when the activity level increases. Feet, hands, and head. The body parts that dissipate heat most easily have received special attention through technology, which is still hard for modern cold weather equipment to match. Limbs are particularly vulnerable to cold because they have a high surface area to volume ratio and are far from the core heat source of the body. Traditional winter survival clothing addresses these vulnerabilities through complex methods, providing thermal protection while maintaining functionality. Deer leather shoes are not merely foot coverings but complete thermal management systems, featuring multiple layers, strategic spaces, and materials selected based on their specific thermal performance. The production of winter deer leather shoes involved several different layers, each with specific functions of warmth, retention, and practicality. The inner layer is usually made of soft rabbit hair or processed deerskin, providing comfort and moisture management for the feet. The middle layer creates an insulating airspace while providing cushioning and structural support. The outer layer offers durability and weather protection while maintaining flexibility for walking. The insulation system used in traditional deer leather shoes includes hay, animal fur, down, and specially prepared materials, which can create an airspace for thermal protection. These materials have been carefully selected and prepared to maintain their insulating properties, even when compressed or exposed to moisture. Grass insulation is usually treated with natural hydrophobic substances to maintain its effectiveness in damp conditions. Fur insulation materials can maintain loft and thermal performance even after long-term use. From thin and flexible mittens for fine work to thickened, highly insulated gloves for outdoor tasks, as well as a variety of intermediate options for different situations. The diversity of hand protection systems reflects the various activities required for winter survival and a need to maintain flexibility while providing thermal protection. Lightweight mittens can be used for detailed work such as sewing, to making on food preparation, while providing basic heat protection. Thick mittens offer maximum thermal protection for outdoor activities such as logging, snow removal, and emergency repairs. The hand cover in the middle fills the gap between these two extremes, providing various combinations of thermal protection and flexibility for different tasks. Some designs use detachable outer layers that can be quickly added or removed as needed. Others have employed strategic openings that allow fingers to temporarily enter specific tasks while maintaining overall thermal protection. The head cover system used in winter tents represents a complex understanding of the crucial role of head insulation in maintaining thermal balance throughout the body. In cold conditions, the human head can account for 40% of the total body heat loss. Therefore, effective head insulation is crucial for survival in winter. The traditional hood is designed to provide thermal protection while allowing for comfort, vision, and communication in a teepee environment. Winter hoods range from lightweight hats for indoor use to heavy -duty fully insulated hoods for use in extreme conditions. Materials and construction techniques vary according to the intended use and available resources. It provides excellent insulation while maintaining breathability. The hierarchical system allows for adjustments based on changing conditions. The special design provides particularly easy heat dissipation protection for the ears, neck, and face. As the night deepened around the flames, we imagined the mysteries of these thermal engineering projects drifted through our consciousness like wisps of smoke rising, and we found ourselves deeply amazed by the knowledge needed for survival in winter. Every aspect of tent life, from the handle of sewing animal skins together to the specific arrangement of pajamas that even went to fuel the fire, represents the accumulated wisdom on how to maintain human comfort and safety in an environment that seems impossible for humans to survive. The integration of all these systems, structure, heat, behavior, and culture has created a winter survivability that has enabled human communities to sustain for thousands of years in some of the most challenging environments on Earth. These systems' complex understanding of thermodynamics, materials science, and human physiology can rival anything developed by modern engineering. However, it is entirely achieved through natural means and the traditional knowledge system. The people who developed these technologies did not have luxurious scientific instruments or controlled experiments. They learned through the most direct feedback. Success means surviving the winter. Failure means death. This strict yet effective feedback system has driven the continuous improvement and refinement of thermal management technology. Families and communities that develop more effective methods can survive and pass on their knowledge to the next generation. Those who did not master winter thermal management did not survive to pass on their knowledge. However, the systems they have created are so elegant and effective that they have supported thriving communities for thousands of years, enabling human culture to thrive even in some of the most challenging environments on Earth. Archaeological evidence shows that humans have been living in the northern plains for thousands of years. These communities not only survived the harsh winters but also developed rich cultural traditions, complex social systems, and intricate trade networks. The cultural achievements created by these winter survival systems include exquisite artistic traditions, complex spiritual practices, intricate governance systems, and extensive methods of knowledge preservation. Effective winter thermal management provides security that enables communities to devote their time and energy to activities that are more than just for survival. The prosperity of art, music, storytelling, and ritual practices lies in the reliable satisfaction of basic survival needs. Perhaps most notably, the materials they used to accomplish all this were provided by nature, as well as techniques that could be learned and passed down through oral guidance and direct observation. Without external energy sources, without artificial materials, without complex tools, only human wisdom is needed to deal with the fundamental challenge of keeping warm enough to get through another winter night. The sustainability of these systems is one of their most impressive features. Unlike modern heating systems that rely on fossil fuels, power grids, or manufactured components, traditional tent heating systems only use renewable resources available in the local environment. Wood can be sustainably harvested from local forests. Leather and fur are obtained from hunted animals. The stone heating elements can be collected from the riverbed and reused infinitely. These heating systems have a negligible impact on the environment. The carbon footprint is basically neutral. Wood-based fuel represents the recently captured atmospheric carbon, which will naturally return to the atmosphere through decay if not burned. The materials used are biodegradable and return to the environment harmlessly at the end of their service life. The manufacturing process does not require industrial infrastructure or non-renewable energy. The thermal energy engineering expertise preservation system passed down from generation to generation represents complex educational and cultural practices, ensuring that important survival information remains accurate and accessible. The oral traditional methods used to preserve and disseminate this knowledge are highly effective in maintaining technical accuracy while allowing for innovation and improvement. Stories, songs, and ritual practices encode technical information in memorable, captivating, and time-resistant forms. The combination of technical knowledge and cultural customs ensures that basic survival information can be preserved even in times of social chaos or environmental change. The teaching method adopts hands-on guidance, progressive skill development, as well as various opportunities for practice and feedback. Beyond our conical tent walls, the wind continues its ancient dialogue, carrying the voices of countless generations who have mastered the art and science of winter survival. But within, surrounded by evidence of human wisdom and the gentle warmth of carefully managed fire, we are increasingly grateful for this complex knowledge, which not only made winter survival possible, but also enables countless generations of harsh seasons to persist on the northern plains. In this warm sanctuary created by accumulated wisdom and practical skills, we find ourselves overwhelmed by the profound knowledge necessary for winter survival and inspired by humanity's ability to innovate, adapt, and preserve life sustaining wisdom. The mysteries of Tipis thermal engineering remind us that complex solutions to complex problems can emerge from careful observation, empirical testing, and the experience accumulated by communities dedicated to surviving and thriving in challenging environments. The legacy of this traditional knowledge goes far beyond historical interest. As modern society is confronted with challenges related to energy efficiency, sustainable building practices, and climate adaptation, the principles and technologies developed by airmen offer valuable insights and inspiration. They achieve thermal comfort with the least amount of energy and renewable materials, providing a model for contemporary sustainable design and low-energy building systems. In traditional teepee life, the combination of human behavior and technological systems provides experience from modern energy-saving living and climate adaptation methods. The complex understanding of thermodynamics, materials science, and human comfort factors represented by these systems lays the foundation for the development of contemporary solutions that are both effective and environmentally friendly. As the frames of our imagination blend deeper into the rhythm of the night and the ancient song of the wind continues its eternal dialogue with the stars, we continue to admire the quiet engineering wonders that make it possible for humanity to survive in one of the most challenging environments on Earth. We pay tribute to the guardians of knowledge, who have preserved and refined these systems over the winter nights of the northern plains for countless generations. However, as we sit in this warm circle and ponder the engineering mysteries around us, we begin to understand the thermal management system we are exploring is only one little of a more complex survival system. A tent is more than just a heating system. It is at the core of comprehensive survival techniques, including food preservation, water management, tool storage, healthcare and social organization. All of these have been optimized for winter conditions that may last for 6 months or longer. The food storage and preservation system combined with winter tent life demonstrates engineering complexity comparable to modern refrigeration technology. The challenge is not merely to prevent food from spoiling. It maintains nutritional diversity, manages the different preservation requirements of various types of food, and ensures the availability of stored supplies during the winter when hunting and gathering opportunities are severely limited. The traditional food storage system utilizes the harsh winter environment as a natural preservation mechanism while protecting the stored food from damage caused by extreme conditions. Underground storage pits have been excavated to precise depths, taking advantage of stable ground temperatures, allowing access even in heavy snowfall. These are not merely holes on the ground, but elaborately designed storage systems with drainage, insulation and access functions to maintain the best preservation conditions. The construction of these storage pits requires an in-depth understanding of soil thermal characteristics, groundwater patterns and seasonal temperature variations. The optimal depth, usually for 2 to 6 feet, is to place stored food below the frost line while keeping it within a stable ground temperature range. Deeper storage will make access difficult and may expose the stored food to groundwater. Shallow storage can cause food to be affected by temperature fluctuations, thereby affecting its preservation. The lining systems used in these storage pits demonstrate detailed knowledge of materials engineering and moisture management. The inner lining of storage pits is usually made of specially crafted tree bark, treated animal skins or woven grass materials, which can not only resist moisture, rodents and other threats, but also maintain proper air circulation. Birch bark is particularly precious as a lining to cache pits because of its natural antibacterial properties, water resistance and flexibility, which make it fit the outline of the pit. The organization storing food in the storage pit follows the principle of maximizing the preservation effect while ensuring effective access during winter retrieval. Considering the storage requirements, vulnerability and usage frequency of different types of food, they should be stored in specific ways. Dried meat is usually stored in the deepest and most stable temperature range. Processed plant-based foods are placed in easily accessible locations because they are used more frequently. The stored oils are kept in containers that prevent rancidity and are also protected from extreme temperature fluctuations. But the most complex aspect of winter food storage is the combination of preservation techniques with the continuous food processing activities carried out inside the tent throughout the winter. Effective thermal management creates a warm and dry environment, providing ideal conditions for the continuation of food preparation and processing activities, and extended on improving the food supply in winter. Meat drying and processing continue in winter tents, using carefully controlled conditions and the warm circulating air generated by the heating system. Thin strips of meat can be dried using the hot upward air flow generated by the central fire. Place them carefully to ensure even drying without overheating. The humidity and temperature controlled inside the tent create ideal conditions for the production of fine quality dried meat, which can be stored for a long time. Extracting fat and oil from bones and meat scraps is another winter tent activity, which not only creates valuable nutritional resources but also helps with heat management. Bone marrow rendering requires continuous heat and meticulous temperature control, both of which are provided by a heating system. The processed oil has a variety of uses. They provide the necessary concentrated heat for winter nutrition, create materials for preserving and preparing food, and offer substances for processing animal skins and maintaining tools. In the meticulously managed teepee environment, plant-based food processing also continues throughout the winter. Seeds, roots, and dried plant materials are processed into flours, meals, and other prepared foods. The technology used requires warm and dry conditions to achieve the best results. Stone grinding tools are used to process plant-based foods into forms that are easier to digest and store more effectively. Pancake is a legendary concentrated food that can sustain long journeys and provide emergency nutrition. Its preparation may represent the most complex combination of food processing and teepee thermal management. The production of PE-NK requires precise control of temperature and humidity to properly blend dry and eat fattened processed plant materials into stable and nutrient-rich food that can be stored for months without spoiling. The production process of chicken skin pancakes uses the heating system of a tent to maintain the optimal temperature, to make the fat reach the appropriate consistency, to dry the meat the appropriate moisture content, and to process berries and other plant materials to supplement the base of meat and fat. The warm and controllable environment of winter tents provides ideal conditions for such complex food processing operations, which is crucial for long-term survival. Water management in the teepee environment during winter presents unique challenges and requires complex engineering solutions. In winter, liquid water is often scarce, which requires communities to rely on melting ice and snow while managing the actual difficulties of energy costs and water production. The integration of the water heating and management system with teepee thermal management demonstrates remarkable efficiency and practical innovation. The ice and snow melting system utilizes the heating capacity of teepee to generate water, while minimizing fuel consumption and maximizing thermal efficiency. Specialized containers and melting technologies enable efficient water production without overwhelming the heating system or generating excessive humidity inside the tent. Earthenware jars, animal skin containers, and stone containers are used in various types of water, eating and storage applications, each with its specific thermal and practical properties. The positioning of the water heating operation inside the tent utilizes the thermal cycle mode to maximize heating efficiency while managing steam and humidity. Water heating is usually carried out in areas where the rising hot air will carry away excess moisture, while providing sufficient heat for the melting and heating operations. The timing of hot water activities is coordinated with other thermal management activities to maximize the efficiency of the entire system. Water storage in a type of environment requires technologies that prevent freezing while maintaining water quality and accessibility. The insulated storage system uses natural materials and strategic positioning to maintain water supply throughout the winter. Large leather containers are typically used for water storage, taking advantage of their insulating properties and flexibility to accommodate thermal expansion and contraction. The integration of water management with food preparation and processing has produced this synergy effect, enhancing the overall winter survivability. Heated water is used for food preparation, cooking, cleaning, and processing activities that continue throughout the winter. The warm and humid air produced by heating water helps maintain a comfortable humidity level while supporting ongoing food processing operations. The medical and healthcare systems in the winter teepee environment demonstrate a complex understanding of preventive and therapeutic methods for maintaining human health during long periods of cold weather confinement. The warm and controlled environment of teepee provides ideal conditions for medical and healthcare activities that are crucial for survival in winter preventive health care. The teepee environment focuses on maintaining the best conditions for human health, while preventing respiratory, skin, and nutritional problems that may occur during prolonged cold weather. A thermal management system that maintains a comfortable temperature also creates an environment that supports the body's immune function and prevents health problems related to cold. Winter air quality management involves a complex understanding of ventilation requirements to maintain healthy breathing conditions while minimizing heat loss. The balance between adequate fresh air circulation and thermal efficiency needs to be constantly monitored and adjusted in accordance with changing conditions and occupancy levels. Too little fresh air can lead to the accumulation of carbon dioxide, increased humidity, and breathing problems. Excessive ventilation may cause an uncomfortable environment and excessive fuel consumption. The smoke management system that controls combustion products also has important health functions, which can prevent respiratory irritation and carbon monoxide poisoning. A complex ventilation system that can both exhaust smoke and maintain thermal efficiency is a key health and safety project necessary for survival in winter. Humidity control inside winter tents addresses the challenge of maintaining comfortable and healthy humidity levels while managing various water sources within enclosed spaces. Human breathing, cooking activities, and smell can generate excessive humidity, which can lead to condensation problems, mold growth, and an uncomfortable environment. Traditional humidity management techniques use natural materials and ventilation strategies to maintain the optimal humidity level. Treating winter-related health issues in a specific environment involves both controlled thermal conditions and stored medical resources to address injuries, diseases, and other health challenges that arise during winter. The warm environment of the tent provides ideal conditions for treating frostbite, hypothermia, and other cold-related injuries, which can still occur despite preventive measures. Medicinal plant preparations and therapeutic methods are usually stored and prepared in winter, and traditional therapies are processed and applied under conditions of controlled temperature and humidity. Many drug preparations require warm conditions to be correctly prepared and applied, making the teepee environment an ideal environment for medical activities. The social and psychological aspects of winter teepee life represent another layer of complex engineering. The focus of this period was to maintain people's mental health and social cohesion during the long period of confinement and isolation. The organization of the interior space and the management of daily activities all contribute to the psychological survival system, which is as important as the thermal management for long-term winter survival. The internal space organization of TEPs in winter strikes a balance between the need for personal privacy and the requirement for family cohesion to prevent psychological problems that may arise during long-term imprisonment. The circular layout of the conical tent creates natural areas for different activities and social functions, while maintaining visual and auditory connections among all family members. The allocation of personal space within teepee follows a model that respects individual needs, while maximizing the effective utilization of the limited internal space. Each family member has designated areas for sleeping, storage, and personal activities, but these individual spaces are integrated into the overall social organization within teepee. The balance between private and public spaces has been meticulously managed to prevent conflicts and maintain family harmony. The activity arrangement and rotation system prevent boredom and conflicts that may arise during long periods at indoor confinement. The traditional winter carnival life includes a wide variety of activities which offer mental stimulation, skill development, social interaction, and productive work that benefits the welfare of families and communities. These activities have been carefully arranged and organized to maintain interest and participation throughout the winter. Storytelling, games, music, and other recreational activities have important psychological functions and also preserve and disseminate cultural knowledge. The well-managed conical tents and their warm and comfortable environment provide ideal conditions for these social and cultural activities, which maintain mental health and community connections during the winter quarantine period. Winter campus educational activities offer opportunities for skill development and knowledge dissemination, using the extended indoor time to enhance personal capabilities and preserve cultural knowledge. Through guidance and practice throughout the winter, children have learned basic survival skills, cultural traditions, and technical knowledge. The combination of productive work with social and educational activities has created winter routines, enhancing practical abilities while maintaining mental health. Animal skin processing, tool making, clothing production, and other production activities provide meaningful work and contribute to family welfare. While providing opportunities for skill development and social interaction, the tool storage and maintenance system in the winter cabin demonstrates complex organization and engineering, keeping basic equipment in top condition while maximizing the efficient use of the limited internal space. The tools, hunting equipment, food processing tools, animal skin tools, fire management tools, and construction materials necessary for winter survival all require a great deal of time and resource investment, and need to be carefully preserved and maintained. The storage systems of different types of tools take into account their specific preservation requirements, usage frequencies, and space limitations in the teepee environment. Hunting equipment requires storage conditions to maintain the accuracy and reliability of weapons while protecting expensive and irreplaceable components. Stone tools need to be protected from moisture to avoid affecting their use and performance. Metal tools, if available, require storage conditions to prevent corrosion and maintain the cutting edges. The organization of tool storage strikes a balance between accessibility, space efficiency, and preservation requirements. Frequently used tools are stored in easily accessible locations that do not interfere with daily activities or the thermal management system. Infrequently used equipment is stored in more remote areas, so that it does not take up precious living space, but can still be used when needed. The tool maintenance activities in the winter tent take advantage of the controlled environment and available time to keep the equipment in the best condition for use in spring and summer. The warm and dry conditions within this type provide ideal conditions for tool maintenance activities that require stable hands, good lighting, and controlled temperature conditions. Weapon maintenance and repair activities require specialized knowledge and careful control of the conditions provided by the winter tent environment. The correction of arrows, the maintenance of ball-shaped bows, the fixation of spear tips, and the maintenance of other weapons are usually carried out in winter, as the pressure of hunting is reduced and there is time for detailed work. Leather processing and leather processing tools need regular maintenance to ensure the effectiveness of the leather processing activities that continue throughout the winter. The scraper needs to be sharpened. All the necessary point maintenance and specialized processing tools need to be taken care of and adjusted to maintain their accuracy and effectiveness. As our flame fades, the mysteries of the winter survival project continue to unfold in the dancing shadows on our sloping walls, and we begin to appreciate the full complexity of the survival systems that make it possible for humans to survive in these harsh environments. All aspects of winter teepee life, thermal management, food systems, water management, healthcare, social organization, until maintenance represent complex engineering solutions that are integrated into comprehensive survival technologies. The remarkable achievements of these traditional systems lie not only in their resolution of individual survival issues, but also in their creation of comprehensive solutions that address multiple challenges while maintaining sustainability and cultural continuity. The thermal management system that keeps people warm also creates conditions for food processing, tool maintenance, and social activities. Food storage systems that preserve nutrients also promote spatial organization and social structure. The social organization system that maintains mental health also promotes the dissemination of knowledge and the development of skills. Integrating multiple survival functions into a coherent, sustainable system reflects the engineering complexity that modern technology finds hard to reach. Contemporary survival systems tend to address individual issues with specialized solutions that require external energy sources, manufacturing components, and industrial support systems. The traditional teepee survival system has achieved comparable or better results by only utilizing renewable local resources and knowledge systems that can be maintained and disseminated without a technical infrastructure. The sustainability and resilience of these traditional systems offer important lessons for contemporary sustainable living, energy efficiency, and climate adaptation methods. The principles and techniques formed over thousands of years of winter survival experience provide a model for developing modern solutions that are both effective and environmentally responsible. When we gaze at the burning coals in the imagined fire and listen to the eternal dialogue between the wind and the stars, we not only admire these engineering achievements, but also recognize that human ingenuity, combined with the patience and wisdom of generations, can create solutions to seemingly impossible challenges. In the warm refuge of accumulating knowledge and practical skills, we found the inspiration to solve the survival challenges of our own times, equally committed to sustainability, integration, and long-term thinking, all of which are the characteristics of the quiet engineering wonder of winter teepee. The wind continues its ancient song, carrying the voices of countless generations who master the art and science of winter survival. In their whispering wisdom, we see both humility in the face of complex survival and confidence in human capabilities, believing that humans have the ability to find elegant solutions to the fundamental challenges of living in harmony with the natural world. As the mysteries of thermal engineering gradually enter our consciousness, just as embers find their place in the flames of the night, let's turn our attention to another aspect of winter. Social status and spiritual responsibility shape the experience of survival in the harsh seasons of the plains in subtle but significant ways. Even in communities where survival depends on each individual's contribution and the gap between life and death is measured by temperature and fuel time, there exists a hierarchy that influences who sleeps closest to the fire, whose tip is given additional isolation, and whose voice matters most when decisions about winter survival must be made quickly in the darkness before dawn. Imagine, if you wish, a respected band leader living in a conical tent in the depth of winter. From the outside, it may not look much different from the other hidden cones scattered around the winter campsite. The same basic structure, the same materials, and the same fundamental relationship between human shelters and the vast cold landscape around them. But take a step closer and you will start to notice the subtle differences related to status. In a society where everyone's survival depends on collective cooperation, the complex ways in which responsibility and leadership function. The conical tent itself is larger, not to show off, but obviously larger than the surrounding family shelters. Its additional size is for practical purposes, not merely for personal comfort. Leaders need local authorities to hold council meetings that are often required for winter survival, provide space for tourists and messengers bringing messages from other tribes, and offer storage space for additional supplies that the community often entrusts to the most reliable members when there is a shortage of materials. But size alone cannot tell the whole story. If you carefully observe the leather used in buildings, you will find that these materials not only represent functional residences, but also the accumulated wealth and social connections. The best water buffalo hides are chosen not only for their thickness and durability, but also for their uniformity and processing techniques. Elk skin was chosen for its special softness and elasticity. Some panels are decorated with painted patterns, both spiritual and social. It symbolizes the relationship between a leader and powerful spiritual strength. Patterns telling stories of successful hunting or victorious battles. These colors were traded from distant regions and are linked to the leaders of the vast network of plain communities. Internally, the differences become even more pronounced. The interior cabin, the complex insulation system we explored before, was constructed with extra care and additional layers. Ordinary families might use an inner layer to create a dead air, while a leader's cabin might have 2 or even 3 layers, forming multiple insulation barriers to keep warm more effectively and last longer when the fire is low. Floor coverings tell their own story of status and comfort. A typical family arranges a sleeping place with any animal skins and furs they can collect, while the leader's cabin showcases carefully selected and meticulously prepared materials. The buffalo robe was sun-dried to a perfect softness, layer upon layer, providing both heat insulation and comfort. Bear skins need to go through dangerous hunting to obtain thick fur, thus forming a luxurious sleeping surface. The fur of wolves and coyotes indicates the hunter's skills and courage. Their unique markings add visual beauty to functional comfort. But perhaps most importantly, the fire in the leader's tent burned steadily and strongly, reflecting the actual resources and social support. Ordinary families must carefully allocate their fuel and constantly calculate how long their wood supply can last, while leader fire regularly receives donations from community members. They understand that the warmth and comfort of leaders directly affect everyone's chance of survival. This is not merely a matter of privileged individuals receiving preferential treatment. The responsibility of a leader is to benefit the entire community. He restored sacred packages. These items with powerful spiritual strength are believed to affect hunting success, weather patterns and community welfare. These bundles require specific environmental conditions to maintain their mental efficacy. They must be kept warm, dry and free from contamination to facilitate the rituals usually required for winter survival. During the long winter nights, storytelling and cultural dissemination became the main activities. A leader's inn was like an informal classroom, where young people not only learned survival skills, but also complex social and spiritual knowledge that united the plain community. The extra space and superior warmth make it an ideal gathering place for these educational conferences. Although the presence of a leader provides authority and significance for sharing knowledge, the fire itself becomes the focus of the activity rather than merely a simple generation of heat. This is the place where important decisions regarding community welfare are discussed and made. The stable and bright flame provided light for formulating hunting strategies, organizing winter operations, negotiating with other groups, and managing complex logistical work ensuring the survival of large groups of animals during harsh seasons. Warmth enables people to think clearly and speak at length, without being disturbed by cold and discomfort. But the leadership of the plain community is not merely personal authority. It has close ties with members of specialized associations, which bear specific responsibilities for community welfare. These societies have their own winter conventions and requirements, which add another layer of complexity to the social dynamics in which teepee lives. Think of a winter hut for a member of a warrior club, one of the organizations for young and middle-sized men responsible for hunting, warfare and community defense. Their tents may not be as large as those of political leaders, but they are a sign of their status and responsibility. Weapons have received special care and prominent display, not only as practical tools, but also as a symbol of social commitment to protecting the community. The special painting design on a typical cover indicates the membership of a specific society and proclaims the role of residents in community defense. In these small houses, winter nights are spent in activities that enhance individual skills and team unity. During the long periods when outdoor activities were impossible, weapons were cleaned, repaired and improved. The stories they told strengthened the cultural values of courage, sacrifice and loyalty. Young people who are eager to become members of society are guided in the skills and values they need to master. But perhaps most importantly, these social cabins serve as communication centers, collecting, analyzing and distributing information about external threats, game activities and weather patterns. Even in winter, the members took turns to serve as scouts, and hundreds of them, and their reports were shared and discussed around the flames of society during evening gatherings. The pharmacist and spiritual leader's hut represents another change in the winter drunken life. These spaces should not only meet the practical needs of winter survival, but also the specific requirements of spiritual practice and therapeutic work. Additional ventilation equipment may be required when smoking in formal settings. Additional storage space is needed to store plants, minerals and other materials used for therapeutic and religious ceremonies. Privacy that is often required for mental work must be specially arranged. In winter, when traveling is difficult and dangerous, these spiritual leaders often find that their service scope is larger than it is in the warm season. People would brave bad weather to make dangerous trips, seek treatment, spiritual guidance or participate in rituals believed to affect the return of spring and the success of hunting in the coming year. The tent of the witch doctor must be able to accommodate these visitors while maintaining the mental conditions necessary for effective ritual work. In these small houses, the preparation of medicines and ritual materials creates its own winter routine. Cans collected in warm seasons need to be processed, prepared and stored in a way that retains their therapeutic properties. Sacred objects need regular cleaning and blessing ceremonies. The spiritual leader's knowledge of songs, prayers and ritual procedures must be maintained and passed on to apprentices during the long winter nights, because such teachings possible. The Women's Association has also preserved its winter traditions and gathering places. Chapters of respected female leaders often become centers of professional knowledge needed for women's survival and work. Here, young women have learned complex skills, such as animal skin preparation, food preservation, tent set-up and child care, all of which are essential for the survival of the community. But these skills are often overlooked by external observers. These women's gatherings are not merely informal social occasions. They are mature educational and decision-making institutions. The most experienced women serve as teachers and advisors to young community members, sharing knowledge, which may mean the difference between success and failure in the complex tasks necessary for survival in winter. They also collectively decide on resource allocation, work arrangements, and social issues that affect community welfare. The winter huts for members of senior communities may represent the sharpest side of the ordinary social hierarchy. In a culture that values accumulated wisdom and experience, age brings respect and authority. The tents of respected elders have received special attention and care from the young members of the community, who understand that these people are an irreplaceable treasure trove of cultural knowledge. But age also brings vulnerability in the harsh winter conditions. The additional insulation layer, better fire protection maintenance, and high-end quality food are not just to recognize their contributions. This is a practical need. To keep people alive, their knowledge may need to survive in unprecedented challenges or unusual circumstances. During the longest winter nights, these old minus-scented huts become informal libraries where oral traditions are preserved and spread, stories that preserve historical knowledge, songs that carry spiritual strength, and detailed explanations of complex survival skills. All this cultural information is stored in human memory and shared beside carefully tended fires during winter gatherings. The seasonal contrast between social arrangements in summer and winter reveals important aspects of how the plane hierarchy operates. In warm weather, when travel becomes easy and resources are generally abundant, social differences can be expressed through carefully designed rituals, competitive displays, and complex visiting patterns among different tribes. Winter compresses all these social complexities into the intimate spaces of individuals and the direct survival needs of small communities. However, even in such a compressed environment, the subtle markers of status and responsibility still play a role. The quality of someone's winter clothes, the stability of their fire, the frequency of visitors to their cottage, and the types of food they can share. All these details convey messages about social status and community roles, even though everyone's main concern is to survive until spring. The redistribution of resources necessary for survival in winter also reveals the actual basis of plain leadership. A leader is not merely someone who directs others. They are the ones who have proven capable of making decisions to keep the community alive under pressure. They have demonstrated their willingness to sacrifice personal comfort for the welfare of the collective. They possess the knowledge and judgment necessary for successful survival. In the harshest winters, when food is in short supply and fuel becomes scarce, the true test of leadership is not the ability to obey orders, but the willingness to ensure that others stay warm and have food when resources are extremely limited. Before allowing community members to sleep near the cold edge, leaders should give up their own resources so that others can occupy the warmest positions near the fire and take on the most dangerous tasks themselves, rather than exposing others to unnecessary risks. This ethics of leadership through service creates a social hierarchy that is constantly verified through actual performance rather than inherited privileges. If a leader makes bad decisions on the issue of survival in winter, or hoards resources when others are suffering, or fails to fulfill the responsibilities assigned to his position, he will soon lose the support of the community, which is precisely what makes his authority possible. When our night vision adapted to the dim fireplace, our thoughts turned to the deeper rest encouraged by winter nights, and we found ourselves contemplating the complex ways in which human society organizes itself in the most challenging circumstances. The campers scattered in the winter camps we imagine not only represent the survival efforts of individual families, but also a complex social system that balances individual needs and collective welfare, acknowledges different contributions and responsibilities, and maintains cultural continuity even when the immediate survival seems to require everyone's full attention. The subtle differences in warmth and comfort among different cabins illustrate some fundamental human nature. Even if everyone is confronted with the same fundamental challenges, it is necessary to recognize different values and varying degrees of responsibility. The leader was sleeping under a slightly thick robe. The pharmacist kept the fire slightly bright. the elderly receive more attention and care. These subtle privileges are not merely rewards for past achievements, but rather investments in the knowledge and decision-making abilities that each person may rely on for their future survival. However, when the fierce wind howls, even the strongest walls will totter. When the temperature drops very low, the breath freezes before it leaves the lungs. When the storm lasts for several days and survival becomes a moment of challenge that tests everyone's endurance. At those moments, the differences between leaders and followers, privileges and commonalities become less important. What matters is the fundamental ability of human beings to cooperate and support each other, which makes any survival possible. Now the fire was burning even lower, turning into deep red coal lumps. During the quiet hours before dawn, the coal lumps would still retain their heat. Outside, the wind that once challenged our ancestors continues its endless dialogue with itself on the plain. But deep down, wrapped in the wisdom accumulated by countless generations of winter survivors, we gradually fall asleep, knowing that human wisdom and compassion have created warmth, safety and dignity, even in the most challenging circumstances in history. As our journey in the winter world of Tipis draws to a close, let's return to our cozy and warm spaces to reflect on the extraordinary stories we shared tonight. On an ordinary winter morning on the Great Plain, we set out from the cold dawn, feeling the impact of the cold air on the warm skin, and learning how to maintain the daily life of the family when survival is measured by temperature and hours of carefully stored fuel. We follow the daily struggles of female chiefs, observing how individual courage and wisdom stand out from the collective survival challenges, and how leadership develops in unexpected places when the community faces situations that traditional methods cannot solve. Our story reminds us that the most significant changes in history often occur by the campfire in winter, in the conversations among people, inanely focus on seeing another sunrise, but in the process, they discover that their abilities exceed anyone's imagination. From there, we delve into the deeper mystery of how these extraordinary sanctuaries operate. Complex thermal energy engineering is hidden within seemingly simple structures. We are amazed by the knowledge system, which enables people to create comfort and safety with only the materials provided by the natural world and the techniques that can be learned through observation and taught orally. Finally, we explored the subtle social hierarchy, which is at play even in communities where everyone's survival depends on collective cooperation. There, leadership means being responsible for the well-being of others rather than ordering them to obey. There, privilege is not measured by luxury, but by slightly superior conditions, which enable people to fulfill the responsibilities that the community requires them to undertake. Through all these explorations, we have found clues that link practical survival skills with cultural knowledge, individual abilities with collective welfare, and ancient wisdom with the eternal needs of humanity. The people developing these winter survival techniques are facing challenges that are almost unimaginable in our warm homes and insulated lives. However, not only did they survive, but they also created rich and complex cultures that have sustained human prosperity, even in some of the harshest environments on Earth. Tonight, as you get ready to sleep in your cozy homes, take a moment to appreciate the extraordinary distance we have traveled as a species. The same wisdom enabled our ancestors to turn animal skins and wood poles into shelters against the cold, and also gave us the technology to make our contemporary comfort possible. The same ability to cooperate and support each other has enabled the winter tent community to survive the harsh seasons and continue to connect us in ways that span centuries and continents. But perhaps most importantly, remember the fundamental human qualities that make survival in winter possible: intelligence, courage, the spirit of cooperation, the willingness to share resources, and mutual support during difficult times. These qualities have not vanished just because the survival challenges before us have become less obvious. We still need them. We still rely on them. We still have the opportunity to showcase them in our own lives and communities. The wind that once blew snow across the boundless plains still blows through our world, although we may seldom hear it blowing from our insulated buildings. The fire that was once the only barrier between the family and the deadly cold still burns in various forms now, although we may take their warmth for granted. The connection between people once meant the difference between whether one could survive the winter or not, but it remains the foundation of everything, making our lives meaningful and sustainable. Tonight, as you gradually fall asleep, let your own gentle breathing rhythm remind you of all your previous breaths, and remind you of countless winter nights when people fell asleep, grateful for the warmth, surrounded by family, and knowing that human wisdom and cooperation have created safety in a challenging world. Let their quiet victories in harsh environments inspire your confidence in humanity's ability to face any challenges that the future may bring. The stars shining on your contemporary sanctuary are those that guide winter hunters, who bring their prey back to the tent camp to feed their families for a few more days. The moon that illuminates your path has also illuminated the journey through the snow-covered plains at midnight, fetching medicine for sick children, or delivering messages between communities scattered in winter. Our connection with those early lives is not merely through our common ancestors, but through our shared humanity. We also hope that children will be happy and cherish warmth, safety and companionship. Equally astonishing is that human adaptability and creativity have enabled our species to thrive in an environment that challenges the limits of our survival instincts. Have a good sleep tonight. Remember that you are part of the chain of human survival and prosperity, the chain that has lasted through countless winter nights, all the way to the beginning of our shared story. The dream. If you dream of a gentle fire that never goes out, dream of a warm robe that exudes the fragrance of summer grass, dream of softly sharing stories that connect past wisdom with future hope. When you wake up tomorrow morning and start your comfortable morning life, please take a little bit of gratitude with you, thanking this extraordinary journey that has brought us humans from the winter tents to where you are now. We are still human beings, still able to create warmth, safety and communities in any situation we face, still connected to each other, and still linked to the natural world that continues to shelter and sustain all of us. The fire burned even lower. As the night deepens, in the gentle space between wakefulness and sleep, we find ourselves grateful for warmth, for safety, and for the silent victory of human patience and wisdom, which make this moment possible. As tonight's story comes to an end, thank you all for listening. Almost every day, I quietly stroll through history with all of you, so you are always welcome back. There is a new tale waiting for you below, where you can subscribe to our night family.